Alright, hey guys, can't get my webcam to work, but we're gonna move on anyway. This is gonna be a video quickly detailing the process of how I make my breaks sound the way they do. So, we have a track here, my Food for Riot remix. I'm just gonna quickly play it for you so you can hear what it should sound like. So you get the gist. That's how the breaks sound. If I just isolate the breaks, you can hear it. But there's a way I process these breaks, and you can see here I've got a big channel here that's doing a lot of the stuff. And I'm gonna delete all of them for the purpose of this video, besides the DGM filter, because I use this on some of the breaks, like here. What is it? This one? I think it might be here. Like that. That's just the filter being automated to go down and then up. So it sounds cool. Anyway, going back to the video, we're going to go through the whole process of how to get these breaks sounding really crisp and clean, or, you know, how I get to sound them. So, first of all, we're going to start off with just a sample. Immediately, I do a volume modulation here. So if I take it off, this is the break we're going to use. I use this volume modulation, and what it does is as it gets played, like, it cuts the volume down a bit. If I really play it tight, you can get like a really tight sounding break. But for this one, I just wanted some of the air off, I think. But you can totally do it like this. It's kind of just whatever style you want. I get it just to have it here because I think in this track I wanted specifically not to have I didn't want it too finely chopped. I wanted the breaks to have some kind of air in it, and by doing that I just have the tail like slightly there but slightly quieter, so the attack is louder than the tail. So that's one of the first things I do, because even if we compare like the snare hit here with like, I don't know if it's very audible, but when you're spamming breaks it's a lot more clearer that you know, you can make them tighter, you can make them more squashed. So yeah, that's one thing I like to try and do. I'll put it back to where it was just for the sake of this video. In fact, no, we can put it down. We can put it down to about here. I usually like to do 1 bar's worth, like just to this line. So usually about around 250. So what we're gonna do is I'm just gonna play the breaks here. Is this a bar? Yeah, I'm just gonna play all the breaks here in a loop. So as we mix them and as we make them, we have like a reference point. So the first thing I like to do is, this is more optional than anything, but hang on, I'll just keep moving this back. I like to use M Stereo Expander. And what M Stereo Expander does, I just open it and I go to wide and I double click wide. This just makes your amens sound a bit more wider than they otherwise would. Just gives them a bit more width and just makes them a bit more stands out a bit more in the mix. Next I use Kilohertz Transient Shaper. This one mega powerful. Let's close that. Transient Shaper, basically, if I open up my mini meters, I can show you a visual example of this. Close that. Put this up here, and if I pin this to the top, we can hear, if we take away the transient shaper and we listen to the break, but then when we put it back on, and then we turn the attack up, we can already see that the attack is more, like the start of the amen is more punchy, which is what we want. We want the amen to be as tight and punchy as possible, or like that's still edible in the, like edible. It's still hearable in the mix. I usually put pump up around 15 to 20%. As it says below, the amount. This is basically emphasizing the transient without increasing the level. I turn sustain down usually a bit, and then I turn speed just up a bit. I'm pretty sure. So now that we have the break and it's like nice and punchy, what I'm gonna then do is open up knock, which is a drum processing VST. Oh, by the way, if you was confused about what I mean by the attack of the snare, if you think about every one of these samples as with an attack and a tail or sustain, it's the start and end of the sample. So we want the start of the sample that we're using here to be like really pop and like pop really hard at the start and then fade quickly, because you want it tight and like snazzy. Knock, I usually quite lazily just put it on one of these. I usually put it on like, it's either breakbeat hard, breakbeat dirty, or subtle distortion. And then what I do after this is I just put on Camel Crusher, which is a distortion VST. Now this sounds quite rough, but I just turn it to British clean. And then after that, I just put an EQ filter on. And what I do is, with the EQ filter, first thing I do is I take the low end here, and I kind of find where the kick is. So I can see the kicks here, so if I spike this, we can hear the kick more, like we can hear that, it's more audible. You can kind of turn it down here again. But I don't want it, I want it to be as far away as I can from like the 40 to 50 hertz range, because that's where our kick's gonna like be the most like sub heavy. So I'll turn this up around 87. I'll usually I tend to only pitch it up like on the high end by 3200, because that is where the snare punch usually kind of sits. And then what I'll do is I'll turn it up just a bit below it to give it a bit more room, and then I'll try and turn it down a bit in the mids. Sometimes here as well. It kind of just depends on your own break and what you're doing. It's very like dependent on whatever you're doing, like what break you're using, how it sounds for your own like effects. I'm just going to make this slightly bit more wider, and I'm going to turn down the high ends a bit so it's less harsh on the amen tones. And then we're going to just do another wall, but very slightly. And then after this, I'm going to do something called a digital filter, the last thing we're going to do. Just put this above here. Digital filter, basically, it's a very harsh wall for EQs. My friend Glideless told me about this. Shout out Glideless. So basically, if I put this in the middle, you can see at this top bit here, like the EQ or the top bit here, like it's really shelving it all. So what we do this is we just put this kind of where the kick would sit, like just after the kick would sit. So a bit more, probably about 0.9. So now that when we play it with the kick, I just turn it on. You can see the kick, like the kick's coming out here, but when the breaks happen, like the kicks end here. So we're like separating the sub layer from where the kicks. We're separating the sub layer from where the kicks usually land to where you know, where the fucking kick starts basically. So yeah, that's my quick process of how I do it. Now, if I go back to the brakes, I mean, one way we could do this a bit better is if we take more sustain up, and then we make the brake tighter maybe by the modulation window. So yeah, there we go. You get the example. So that's how I get my brakes to sound the way they do. You can do other things to them, but this is my usual run out. I'll make it slightly wider. I'll make it quite wider. I use the stereo expander for that. I make it more punchy through the transient shaper. Kilohertz hertz is the one I use. I use knock to just give it some kind of bonuses like punch, saturation, sub. It's just a all around drum like kind of process. It just adds a lot of things. I just use the presets. It can be a bit funny sometimes to use. Like sometimes it clips out your first kick, so you have to work around that. But otherwise, yeah, this is what I use. I use knock for quite a lot, but I'm kind of veering off it. But you don't need it, but it's helpful. Camel Crusher is a really big one. It's a slight distortion, but mainly a compressor. The compression on it's really good. So when you compress your Amen, it's just a super simple, easy compression to make it sound better. I use the EQ, visual EQ, to like raise the parts I want. Primarily, I cut off where the sub end is, give a bit more weight to the kick. I could probably just turn this down a bit more. The snare, I mainly peak it. I give it a slight little boost around 3,200. I also then add a bit more room behind the 3,200. I give that a bit of weight, and I knock down a bit of the mids or a bit of the the muddy part after the kick. And also sometimes I take the high end down because I don't want a harsh amen tone all the time. Like sometimes it can sound a bit screechy. After that, I use a digital filter to really wall off everything that goes before the kick of the amen. So there's no muddiness, no noisiness that's going on that's conflicting with the kick sub frequencies. So yeah, that's it. That's all I have to talk about, and I hope this video helps. Okay, so one other thing I forgot to mention about this is I'm re-recording this post from making the initial video. What you can do is to get your brakes to sound kind of cooler as well. One thing you can do is you can use an akaizer tool. I like to do this in some tracks. So let's say we have this brake here. We can right click. We can download this tool online. I'll link it in the video. You can see my other video here. I'm following the format. But here, if you download this, you just download it. Control J. You download it, and you can just put it straight into your Renoise. Just drag it in, and it'll download it. Right click, process, set akaizer, and then I do normally +9 or 12 is what I usually do. You do that, you wait a bit for it to work, and what this does is it time stretches your brake, and you can re-slice this and reformat it and make a cooler brake and a cooler sounding brake. And another thing you can do is to get a cool effect is, so if I just play the normal brake, if I play this normal brake, you can add a delay to the brake and make it really quiet. Boost the tone a bit and boost the mix a bit. And you could do that as well. That's another really good tip to make the break sound cool. Okay, that's the video. Bye guys.